Um, Thank you, Mr. Bowen. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and thank you to the Honourable Member for Makerfield for securing this important and timely debate. I'm not alone in seeing the impact of Covid-19 on household debt directly now, both in my mailbag and through surgeries. And I suspect I'm also not alone in this place in seeing the divergence between those who've managed over the last year to cut their costs and increase their savings, and to those who are just about managing, who now find themselves in an even more perilous position. The data from the ONS backs this up. There's evidence that some households, particularly those with low incomes, have run down their savings over this last 12 months, 18 months, and increased their level of debt in the pandemic. And that divergence is something that we've got to be keenly aware of as we emerge from COVID. As I walk around Barrow or Dalton or Ulverston in my constituency, I see the households that have spent some of the last year fixing up their gardens and their houses, and I have to say I'm a little bit jealous of them, but those who've allowed their houses to fall into disrepair. And of course it's no official measure, but it's clear that in the same streets we're seeing families rubbing up against each other, some who are thriving and some who are struggling. Renters, parents, carers, disabled, many of those who've shielded over this last year. These are the people who we must ensure are not left behind as we move through COVID. We must be alive and ready to ensure that this schism isn't permitted to widen further and their debt burden to increase even more. You know, I have to pay credit to the government for its significant efforts to support families through this pandemic: furlough, universal credit uplift, the national living wage increase, the local housing allowance uplift and the hardship fund. These are all measures that have not just kept families afloat, but they've kept them going in these uncertain times. But on the UC uplift in particular, extending it was absolutely the right thing to do. I'm grateful to the Chancellor and his team for listening to backbenchers like myself when we made the case for that. But we're about to go into a period of uncertainty, and I'd be very interested to hear the Minister's views as to what a further extension of that programme might look like and how it might support some of these vulnerable people who we are talking about now. We're right to focus on jobs now, to get people into work, to get them earning more, getting the skills they need to get back on the ladder. But we should also look at the support schemes that are working and in existence and how we can support them. Christians Against Poverty is a great example of that, as is Step Change. Yet the fact remains, Mr. Chair, that not everyone is going to be able to make the jump into a job or to make it as quickly as others. You know, the safety net has to be robust and it's got to be in place to support them, otherwise we are being derelict and failing in our duty. The Kickstart and Restart schemes targeted at young people and at those at risk of long-term unemployment are going to be key to this. And I'd like to pay tribute to the local DWP in Furness, who are working so hard and with great enthusiasm to deliver these schemes. Only a few days ago, my local DWP team announced that Lisa, our local youth work coach, is going to be working in a different office in a place called Drop Zone in the centre of town, alongside local council officers, job providers and others. That visibility, that change of circumstances is really innovative, and it's great to see, and I want to see more of that as we try and help those who really need it right now. We cannot allow household debt to rack up. You know, breathing space scheme is welcome. Many of my constituents have sung its praises to me. It provides important short-term relief, and we must be taking this time to look at the principles behind it and how we can sympathetically help those families who may now be building up problem debt. Yeah, I declare an interest here as a former chair of the Barrow and District Credit Union, but I do think there's a role that organisations like that can and should be playing to help individuals and families as we emerge from this crisis. And I'd hope that the government would consider supporting them in order to support our communities more. They're well connected to debt advice charities. They work very, very closely with the local third sector. And perhaps most importantly on this topic, they help steer people away from short-term lenders and loan sharks. In many ways, they're some of the very best parts of our civil society and some of the least known. You'll be relieved I'm coming to the end, Mr. Chair. We have to be alive to the fact that gaps exist, and the road ahead for many of our constituents will be difficult, especially as we try to keep them out of debt. It's that challenge we have to rise to. Some of the issues related to this are absolutely crucial. They worry away at the fabric of our society. By focusing on debt, financial exclusion, dependency, loneliness, and on skills, we're providing people with a ladder. We have an opportunity to make a real and lasting change to those in our communities most in need, and we've got to grab that opportunity and take it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.